The hall was quiet except for the heavy thud of leather boots echoing against the yellowed linoleum. Nobody paid much attention to Maya when she walked into Westbridge High on a rain-soaked Tuesday morning. She was small, soft-spoken, and wore a faded denim jacket that looked 2 sizes too big. To anyone looking, she was just another quiet freshman trying to disappear into the crowd. But disappearance is a luxury you do not get when Tyler Vance decides you are his target for the day. Tyler was a senior, broad-shouldered, loud, and used to getting whatever he wanted without anyone ever standing in his way. As Maya turned the corner toward her locker, a hand reached out, caught her long dark hair, and yanked her backward with enough force to snap her head back. Pain flared down her neck, but before her heels could even skid across the floor, something inside her shifted. The air in her lungs did not turn into a scream. It turned into cold, razor-sharp focus. Most people who saw Maya thought of her as harmless, but they had no idea where she had spent the last 4 years of her life. They did not know about the bare concrete gym downtown, the smell of sweat and leather pads, or the relentless voice of her Uncle Marcus telling her that dynamic response was the only thing that kept a person safe when control was taken away from them. Krav Maga was not about showing off, and it certainly was not about picking fights. It was about survival, efficiency, and ending a threat before it could destroy you. When Tyler pulled her ponytail, he expected her to cry, to drop her books, or to turn around with wide, terrified eyes. Instead, Maya's body moved on instinct honed by hundreds of hours of repetition. She did not pull away against his grip because pulling away only gives the attacker control. Instead, she stepped directly into the tension, rotating her shoulders with sudden, explosive speed. Her right hand swept upward, trapping his wrist against her head to lock the joint, while her left elbow drove backward into the soft tissue of his ribs. The sound that came out of Tyler was not a shout of anger, but a sharp gasp of lost air. His fingers unlocked automatically. Before he could process what had happened, Maya swung around, planted her back foot, and executed a swift heel palm strike directly to the side of his jaw. It was not meant to knock him out. It was meant to create distance. Tyler stumbled back 3 full steps, slamming into a row of lockers with a metallic crash that echoed down the entire hallway. The silence that followed was total. Students who had been laughing seconds ago froze in place. Paper sheets floated down from an open folder Tyler had dropped. Tyler held his jaw, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and sheer humiliation, staring at the small girl who had not even dropped her backpack. Maya adjusted the strap on her shoulder, her chest rising and falling evenly. She did not yell. She did not gloat. She simply looked him dead in the eye, her voice calm, quiet, and steady. She told him to never touch her again. Then, without waiting for a response, she turned around and walked down the hall toward her first period class, leaving a hallway full of witnesses in complete disbelief. Word spread through Westbridge High like wildfire through dry brush. By lunchtime, everyone had heard a different version of what happened. Some said Maya was a black belt in karate. Others said she had sent a senior to the hospital. But Maya sat alone at the edge of the bleachers during lunch, holding an unopened apple juice box, her mind far away from the schoolyard gossip. She was not proud of what had happened. In fact, her heart was heavy with a deep, nagging worry. She knew that actions in a high school hallway never stay contained. Tyler Vance was not the kind of guy to take a public humiliation lying down, and his family held a lot of sway in the town. What the rest of the school did not know was why Maya had transferred to Westbridge in the middle of the semester in the first place. Her family had moved 3 times in 2 years, constantly trying to outrun a past that seemed to follow them everywhere. Her father had been a quiet carpenter who worked with his hands, but 2 years ago, an unexpected debt and a bad encounter with local loan sharks had shattered their quiet life. The stress had broken her family apart, leaving Maya and her mother to move from town to town, living in small apartments and keeping their heads down. The Krav Maga training had not been a hobby. It had been a necessity taught to her by her Uncle Marcus, an ex-military instructor, after a night when someone had tried to break into their front door back home. As Maya sat on the cold metal bleachers, a shadow fell over her. She looked up expecting Tyler or one of his friends, but instead, she saw a girl with thick glasses and an oversized cardigan holding a brown paper lunch bag. Her name was Elena. Elena had been the victim of Tyler's relentless teasing for months, and she looked at Maya with a mixture of awe and terror. Elena asked if she could sit down, her voice trembling slightly. Maya nodded and moved over. Elena told her that no one had ever stood up to Tyler before, but then her tone shifted from admiration to genuine concern. She warned Maya that Tyler's older brother, Ray, was not just a high school bully. Ray ran with a rough crowd on the east side of town, people who did not care about school rules or hall monitors. Maya listened quietly, her fingers tightening around the juice box. She thanked Elena for the warning, but deep down, a familiar knot of dread began to tighten in her stomach. She had spent her whole life trying to avoid trouble, trying to blend in so her mother would not have to worry. Her mother worked double shifts at a local diner, coming home late with swollen feet and eyes heavy with exhaustion. Maya had promised her mother that this move would be different, that Westbridge would be a fresh start where nothing bad would happen. Now, on her very first week, she had drawn a line in the sand, and the tide was already coming in to wash it away. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Maya walked out of the school gates into a steady gray drizzle. The parking lot was clearing out fast, red taillights blurring against the wet asphalt. She had barely made it past the edge of the school property when a dark sedan pulled up alongside the curb, its tires screeching lightly against the wet road. The passenger door swung open, and out stepped Ray Vance, taller and broader than his younger brother, with cold, arrogant eyes and a scar running along his jawline. Tyler was in the back seat, pointing through the glass. Ray walked up to Maya, blocking her path on the narrow sidewalk, his hands buried deep in the pockets of his heavy leather jacket. Ray did not raise his voice. He stepped close enough that Maya could smell stale smoke and cold rain on his coat. He told her that nobody put hands on his brother without paying a price, and that small girls who thought they were tough usually learned the hard way how the real world worked. Maya did not back up. Leaving her feet planted was the first rule Uncle Marcus had taught her when facing an intimidation tactic. She kept her hands open and low near her hips, ready to react if he made a sudden move. She told Ray that his brother had laid hands on her first, and that she had only defended herself. Ray let out a dry, humorless laugh, stepping even closer until he was barely an inch away. He leaned down and whispered that school rules did not apply once she crossed the street, and that she had better watch her back every single day she walked home. Then he turned, got back into the sedan, and slammed the door. The car sped off, splashing muddy water over Maya's shoes. She stood there on the empty sidewalk as the rain began to fall harder, soaking through her denim jacket. The threat was clear, but what scared Maya the most was not Ray or his brother. It was the realization that her safe space had once again vanished, and that she was completely on her own in a town where she knew almost no one. When Maya got home that night, she tried her best to hide her distress from her mother. She washed the mud off her shoes, hung her damp jacket in the bathroom, and set the table for dinner. Her mother, Sarah, came home around 8, looking paler than usual. Sarah set her purse on the kitchen counter and sat down with a heavy sigh, running her hands through her hair. Maya asked her how her day was, trying to keep her voice light. But Sarah looked up with tears welling in her eyes and held up an envelope. It was a formal notice from their landlord. The rent on their small apartment was being raised significantly starting next month, an amount they simply could not afford on Sarah's diner wage alone. The walls seemed to close in on Maya. At school, she was facing a dangerous escalation with the Vance family, and at home, the roof over their heads was slipping away once again. She sat down next to her mother, wrapping her arms around her shoulders. Sarah wept softly, apologizing for not being able to give Maya a stable life. Maya told her mother that they would figure out together, that she would find a part-time job after school. But deep inside, the weight of everything was becoming unbearable. She realized that running away from problems never really solved them. It only delayed the moment you had to turn around and stand your ground. The next morning at school, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Everywhere Maya walked, students whispered and pointed. Tyler was back, sitting with his usual crew near the lockers, staring at her with a smug, knowing grin. He knew his brother had confronted her, and he was waiting for her to break under the pressure. Maya kept her posture straight, her gaze fixed ahead, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her fear. In second period, her teacher handed back a group project assignment, and Maya was paired with Elena. As they worked together at a lab table in the back of the class, Elena slipped a folded piece of paper into Maya's notebook when the teacher was not looking. Maya opened the note under the desk. Written in hurried, frantic handwriting were 3 lines. Ray and his friends are waiting at the abandoned paper mill behind the park after school. They took something from your locker during gym class. Do not go there alone. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She immediately stood up, excused herself to go to the restroom, and check her locker. The latch had been pried open slightly. Inside, her small wooden box, the only thing she had left from her father, containing his old pocket watch and a small photograph of her family before everything fell apart, was missing. A cold rage, far deeper and more dangerous than any fear she had felt before, washed over Maya. That wooden box was not just an object. It was her anchor, her memory of a time when she felt safe and loved. Tyler and Ray had crossed a line that had nothing to do with high school hallway dominance. They had invaded her life and taken the one thing she could never replace. She walked back into the hallway, her jaw set, her mind clear. She knew it was a trap designed to force her into a corner where there were no witnesses, no teachers, and no rules. But she also knew she was not going to let them take her past away from her. When the final bell rang at 3 o'clock, the sky was overcast and heavy with dark gray clouds predicting a storm. Maya did not take her usual route home. Instead, she walked past the edge of the school grounds, crossed the rusty footbridge over the creek, and headed toward the overgrown industrial area on the outskirts of town. The old paper mill sat like a hollow metal giant against the horizon, its broken windows staring out over a lot filled with rusted machinery and tall weeds. Every step she took was calculated. She took deep, measured breaths, bringing her heart rate down, recalling the psychological conditioning Uncle Marcus had drilled into her during long evening sessions. As she stepped inside the main structure of the mill, the smell of damp concrete and rust filled her nose. Rain dripped steadily from holes in the high corrugated iron roof, creating a rhythmic clicking sound against the metal floor. In the center of the vast, dusty floor stood Ray Vance, flanked by 2 older guys she had never seen before. Tyler was standing off to the side, holding the small wooden box in his hands with a cruel grin on his face. Ray stepped forward, tossing a heavy metal pipe from hand to hand, his voice echoing off the high walls as he told her she was either very brave or exceptionally stupid for showing up alone. Maya stopped 15 feet away, her feet set shoulder-width apart, her center of gravity low. She did not look at the pipe in Ray's hand. She kept her eyes fixed on his sternum, watching his shoulders for any sign of motion. She told him calmly to give back what did not belong to him and end this right now. Ray laughed, a hard, grating sound, and told her that out here, she did not get to make demands. He gestured to his 2 friends, who began to split up, circling around her to cut off her exit. The trap was sprung, and Maya was surrounded on 3 sides by guys who were bigger, stronger, and completely convinced they held all the power. The first guy lunged from her left, reaching out with broad hands to grab her jacket and push her to the ground. But Krav Maga is designed specifically for multiple attackers and uneven odds. Maya did not wait for the grip to land. She ducked under his reaching arm, drove her side kick straight into his knee joint, and used the momentum of his falling weight to spin him into the path of the second attacker, coming from her right. The 2 collided with a heavy thud, stumbling over a pile of scrap metal. Maya moved instantly, closing the distance on Ray before he could raise the metal pipe to strike. Ray swung the pipe in a broad, desperate horizontal arc, but Maya stepped directly inside the line of the strike, closing the distance where the pipe had no force. She blocked his forearm with her left arm while her right palm struck his throat, cutting off his breath instantly. Ray gasped, dropping the pipe as it clattered against the concrete floor. Maya seized his jacket, swept his front foot with her heel, and brought him down to his knees with a clean, sharp takedown. Within less than 30 seconds, the fight was over. The two friends were struggling to get up from the rusted debris, and Ray was on the ground, clutching his neck and gasping for air. Tyler stood paralyzed near the back wall, the wooden box trembling in his hands. The confident, smug expression on his face had completely vanished, replaced by sheer terror. He looked at Maya as if she were a ghost. Maya walked slowly toward him, her footsteps light and controlled. She did not raise her fists. She simply held out her hand, her eyes locked onto his. Tyler handed the wooden box back to her without saying a single word, his hand shaking so violently that the box almost slipped from his fingers. Maya held the box close to her chest, checking to make sure the lock was intact and the photograph inside was safe. She turned to leave, but as she reached the wide, open doorway of the mill, she stopped and turned around. Ray was sitting up, breathing heavily, looking at her not with anger, but with a profound, quiet shock. Maya looked at both brothers and told them that strength is not about making other people feel small so you can feel big. She told them that real strength is knowing you have the power to destroy someone, but choosing to walk away instead. Then she walked out into the rain, leaving them alone in the quiet, decaying building. When Maya returned home that evening, the rain had stopped, leaving the sky painted in deep shades of purple and orange. She placed the wooden box back on her desk and sat down at the small kitchen table with her mother. For the first time in months, Maya felt a sense of clarity that had been missing for so long. She told her mother everything, not just about the bully at school, but about how she had felt carried away by fear for so long, and how she realized that running from place to place was never going to fix the holes in their lives. She told Sarah that they were going to stay in Westbridge, that they were going to fight for their home, and that they were not going to let fear dictate their choices anymore. Over the next few weeks, something quiet but remarkable began to happen at Westbridge High. The story of what happened at the paper mill never became a public rumor, because Tyler and Ray never said a word about it to anyone. But the way they acted changed completely. Tyler stopped bothering Elena and the other younger students. He sat in the back of the classroom, quiet and subdued. One afternoon, during gym class, Maya was sitting on the bench when Tyler walked up to her. He did not look at her directly, but he handed her a small envelope before walking away. Inside was a letter from his father, who owned a local construction and maintenance firm, offering Maya's mother a steady, while paying an administrative job that would easily cover their rent. Maya looked across the gym at Tyler, who gave her a short, silent nod from across the room. It was not an act of charity. It was a quiet acknowledgement of respect, a recognition that power used to protect is far greater than power used to hurt. Maya's mother took the job, stabilizing their life and giving them the foundation they had been searching for through years of uncertainty. Maya continued her training every morning, not out of fear of what might happen next, but out of a deep commitment to being strong enough to stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. True power is never measured by how hard you can strike or how much fear you can instill in others. Real power is found in the calm after the storm, in the quiet discipline that allows you to protect your peace, lift up those around you, and walk through the world with your head held high, knowing that no matter what comes your way, you have the strength to hold your ground.